Now, in a copy of the roadmap I have with me that was released by Justice Piamokama, he mentioned that there will be a ban on mass gatherings and that candidates will campaign using media and online platforms. How is this going to affect the elections?
Oh, that's a complete joke. First of all, what's the percentage of Ugandans who have access to electricity? And for all of that, you need a bit of televisions, radios. You need a bit of electricity. At least televisions, radios. You could argue maybe they use cells and all that, but they are not going to buy cells to listen to. You deprive them of their right to actually listen to the candidates before they vote for them, because I think electricity penetration is at I would make it about 70% of Ugandans do not have constant access to electricity in their homesteads. So that means that's a percentage of people who, in one way, are eliminated away from this campaigning process. But even if you go beyond that, how many of them have access to smartphones where they can, have all these platforms? Many of them, even those who have phones, the phone penetration is a bit high, but not all of them are smart. So even many of them who have phones not necessarily have smartphones where they could, watch videos and things like that. But even those who have to pay the tax for government, so over the top tax or the OTT for access to social media platforms, and the MBs and all these other things. Then it's government which is saying they are buying radios for students to be learning, but actually which is for them to campaign. But even before you go into that, there has not been a fairness on media platforms when it comes to opposition candidates in this country. It has never happened. We know that all opposition candidates go up country. The RDCs are almost under instruction to make sure that opposition people do not step on their, on radio stations within. And starting from Jinja, where Fort Porto and so on, there was one in Fort Porto where they poured salt in the radio equipment because they were hosting, I think, Dr. Kiza Besigye, and so on and so forth. So there is never going to be an equal amount of time given to all candidates. It is not going to happen. Even in normal circumstances, it does not happen.
But Joseph, the Electoral Commission says it's going to engage media owners and the Ministry of ICT to make sure that there is fairness in terms of the media airtime for different candidates. Is there any truth to it?
No, of course, they don't have that capacity. There's even no truth to it. And even they themselves know they cannot do that. That's beyond them. I'll give you an example. For instance, Honorable Chagulanyi Bobi Wine went and declared his intention to want to stand, and then he went to the Electoral Commission. Then they give you the permission to go and consult, because as a candidate, you need to get signatures from all these districts. And to get those signatures, you need to go and consult. So he lives with all the legal mechanisms for him to go and consult the electorate on, ahead of the elections. What happens? Police happens. What happens? RDCs happen, and so on. So eventually, none of his consultations amount to anything. They say, we don't want them outdoor. He goes indoor. They chase him. They want them now indoor and outdoor, nowhere. Eventually, it doesn't happen. And that is even if Electoral Commission has issued you with full permission to go and consult the voters. So Electoral Commission doesn't have all that power, and they know it. They know it. They know they are just stooges of the regime. They are appointed by the regime. And the fact that that same Yamukama can come and see yonder, went and consulted the president and then comes and issues guidelines just because they are agreeable to one candidate, shows that he's a joke himself. So now, all the things he's saying that they are going to engage and make sure that they will go and talk whatever they talk. But the practicality of it is not there. When these candidates go up country to speak to the electorate on different radio stations, I know of one where they gave an exorbitant, out of the over the roof price for 30 minutes. And when the candidate said, okay, we'll pay for it, they said, no, we are not going to do it. Because they knew that immediately you host that candidate after the election. I think the candidate was Dr. Besigye. After the election, all the systems of government are going to come down on your radio station. You'll not be getting adverts of cholera for Ministry of Health, of what, and all that. So they make it so difficult for these media houses to actually be fair, even if they wanted to. It's almost impossible. And that is even in normal elections. Now, in these ones, it is just going to be one candidate speaking to the electorate, and you'll have the full leverage of all the media houses. He won't even have to pay for them. For him, he can commandeer time, as he has been doing. First of all, he has been doing more or less that throughout the whole COVID period, when he has 2 or 3 announcements to make, but it takes 3 hours. And the other time of most of the time, 3 hours is more or less campaigning. So he has had the benefit of campaigning for this long, but he still wants to completely tie everybody's hands, because of course he knows his presidency is not supported by popular will.
Now, these guidelines, Joseph, the commission said while delivering them that they carried out the due risk analysis and instituted the mitigating measures, but it said that it was in line with guidelines from Ministry of Health. Does this play into the narrative that the government is perhaps using the COVID cover-up to somehow have its way through the electoral process?
Of course they are. I mean, America has had the biggest number of COVID deaths, in excess of 100,000. Some estimates go to 120,000. They have an election in November, and nobody is talking of scientific campaigns. Actually, they have started rallies, and the incumbent has a rally somewhere in Tulsa, Oklahoma, this weekend, and nobody is talking about scientific campaigns. And yet, number one, if they did, they would, the media channels there are not as controlled by government as ours are here. Number one, so all candidates would have equal access. That's first. Secondly, their penetration of electricity, of all these social media platforms is far higher than ours. So theirs would be something close to at least reaching everybody through those platforms, because they have that capacity. But no, they have gone the way of personal interaction, and yet the election is supposed to be in November. Ours, according to that roadmap, I think is next year, early next year, March. So what excuse do we have? They have COVID. We have it here, but we've not had any fatality. So they've had them in excess of 100,000, and yet they are carrying on with an election which is going on in November. So what excuse do we have not to have rallies when people who actually have, terrible figures of dead people from the virus are going ahead with their life?
What would you say to someone that perhaps supports the government in trying to keep us safe from congregating during elections?
Well, the thing is, if they really wanted to keep us safe, there are so many other things they could do. But you see, you can see there is a desire to prolong the whole COVID thing to go into elections. And they have been saying that all along. The scientists would determine elections and what, and it's just a cover-up. The truth is, if the COVID has been a perfect excuse for so many things, for them, and it's going to continue being an excuse, and that they are going to milk the crisis to the maximum, and that's what they are trying to do. So the whole thing of staying safe and what, by the way, in some of those countries, people are signing waivers we're signing a waiver. If I come to the rally and I contract COVID, I'm responsible for my own life. How about we do that? And we see how many people will fear COVID and stay home rather than go to listen to their candidate. Because they are doing that in some countries. So that we say, okay, these are the guidelines we would have given. However, if you go to the rally, you're going at your own risk. So sign a waiver that, if you contact the virus from there, it's nobody else's but your responsibility. Let's see how many people would actually fear to go and listen to their candidates because they are scared of COVID. I don't think there are going to be that many. I don't think there are even that many Ugandans who are still scared of COVID as it is, because there are so many other pressing issues that are a bigger cause of death that we have been facing every time. So safety is not just around one virus, which is even yet to kill one person. We have so many causes of mortality in our country because of a dysfunctional health system, and there are so many things that can be made right through an election for which we would rather risk COVID to go and make something right once and for all, like removing this failed government and putting one that is going to prioritize health and reduce the number of malaria deaths, the number of infant mortality deaths, the number of child deaths, the number of people who are dying in police custody, and all those other things, which is a figure for which we should really be concerned. And that can be sorted at the election, if it is a free and fair election. So maybe that's a bigger issue for us than the so-called safety. How safe are we when we are going to be, subjected to another 5 years of this rubbish?
Are you implying that the Electoral Commission is not independent at all?
It is not anywhere close to independent.
But it recently wanted to include the word independent in its title, the Independent Electoral Commission.
I can call myself doctor, but I'm not a doctor. And who is going to say no? I mean, I can call myself anything I want to. You understand? There are people who are called doctors who are not doctors. So if I can say like Dr. Dre, so I say I'm Dr. Kabuleta, and so does that make me a doctor? So just because they put the prefix independent doesn't make them independent. Nobody thinks they are independent, and they don't even act independent, and they don't even pretend to be independent. That's why they can go and say we consulted the president, and this is what's going to be. Does that sound like an independent body?
Okay. Perhaps lastly, in your suit to the Electoral Commission, you mentioned that this is a violation of electoral laws, and I'm sure that the Electoral Commission pretty much knows the electoral laws more than perhaps everybody, or they should. Do you really stand a chance at making any difference?
No, the Electoral Commission might know, at least their legal people might know the laws, but this document was drafted by very, very top lawyers. So they know what they are talking about. It wasn't drafted by myself, although I am the person suing. It wasn't drafted by me. It was drafted by people who are very good at law, and so they know what they are talking about. And since when did law mean anything to this regime? Everything they have been doing here, what laws have they been following in issuing all these directives? What laws do they follow? They actually, we've come to the place where the only law is Museveni. What he says is law. Okay? And that is even before we got into this whole COVID period. And now, some people are deceiving themselves that a time is going to come after this COVID period, where now suddenly we have gone back to the previous thing where the president cannot give directives, and there are all sorts of bloodthirsty LDUs outside waiting to implement those laws. It's going to be a feature from now onwards, because when they descend down into an abyss like this, they don't come out of it. They don't want to come out of it. So it is going to be more or less more of a police state than before, because the directives are not going to just be about COVID now. They're going to be presidential directives generally. And you do not do them, you face the bloodthirsty LDUs. And that's going to be the new normal. So these are all things. The danger is not in going for elections and getting COVID. The danger is not changing this government at elections. That is the big danger for this country.